So what do we do now on a practical way to face our fears? So that's what I'd like to talk about next. What are some practical things you can do? Well, let's first look at your environment, changing your environment. So I would put this under environment. Things that you can do to change your environment so that you can experience fear. Now, some of these things are going to be emotional that you'll need to do, and some of them will be physical things that you can do. The first thing is drink lots of water. Most people go, what's that related to fear? Trust me, you drink lots of water, you'll start realising why you use your tea and why you use your coffee and why you use your Coke and why you use your, can you see, like all these other things that we use? You'll start seeing why you use them, and they're all related to fear of dealing with deeper emotion. All right? When you drink water, and my suggestion is 4 to 6 litres of water a day. So I drink about 5 a day myself. But if you drink that amount of water, you'll need to have mineral salts in your diet. So that's the other thing to remember, just some sea salts, like something like Celtic sea salt or something like that that's got mineral. So drink water. What does that do? Every cell in your body is like a machine. It's a machine that takes in mostly water and expels impurities. And it uses the water to manufacture everything else. It uses the water and a combination of minerals in your diet and vitamins in your diet to keep itself going. The cells are like these every single cell, of which you've got hundreds of billions in your body, is like a little manufacturing system. Now, I don't know if you've gone to any manufacturing process here on Earth, like you go to a chocolate factory or you go to a sheet metal factory or whatever, at the base metal place, you'll find that they use huge amounts of water to actually manufacture that particular thing. In fact, water is the thing that's used the most in every single manufacturing process almost, right? And the reason why is because water forms the basis of our planet and forms the basis of our body. It forms the basis of everything. If you don't supply your body with enough water, your body doesn't have the chance to regenerate from all of the things that we're throwing at it emotionally. So just drinking water opens you up emotionally. Right? So focus on drinking some water. Eat vegan. These are just suggestions, you don't have to do them. For a start, eating vegan is the most loving thing you can do to the environment. Right? It uses the least amount of resources in your environment. You're actually being the most loved towards your environment when you eat in that manner. Also, you're being very loving to your own body. Your own body will respond to that. Now, what will happen emotionally is you'll go through a lot of emotional withdrawals. Food-based, in particular, emotional withdrawals. And those emotional withdrawals are all related to different emotions that you're using food to suppress. Does that make sense? And what often happens is that we have an emotion come up. How many of you find this happening in a day? Like, ladies, chocolate, period time? You see the relationship? Anytime. But you can see it ups usually at certain times of stress, right? Certain times of things going on emotionally. With guys, it's often different things like Coke or some other type of sugar-based drink, right? And for many guys, it's alcohol, all right? For similar reasons. We search for some substance to give us the coping mechanism to deal with an emotion that we really need to not cope with and just experience. Does that make sense to everyone? So give up coping with emotion and start allowing the experience of the emotion. Stop using drink and food as mechanisms to deny your emotion. Now, trust me, even just doing those two things, you're going to feel some fear. Right? And what I did once was I went on this diet, right, where I just had fruit for a whole weekend. This was way, way back before I even knew about the Divine Love Path and remembered it again. And just way back, like we're talking in my 20s. By the second day, my whole body was shaking like this. Like, you'd call them the DTs, right? Like, the whole body was just shaking like this. And eventually, my whole body and all this turmoil was happening in my stomach as well at the same time. Eventually, I just had to eat. That's the way I thought, right? And I just went. As soon as I had one thing to eat, the whole thing stopped. What was going on there? Me just eating fruit for 2 days and drinking water triggered huge emotions that I wasn't allowing myself to experience, right? And this is what will happen to many if you do that. So eat vegan. These are practical things to do in your environment. Number 3, have a place that you can experience anger in, right? So create a place somewhere where you can experience anger. So in our place, because we live in a bit bigger property than just a yard like in the town, we just hang on the back wall of the house a boxing bag, got a couple of baseball bats. We've got a metal baseball bat for hitting some metal a bit further out. And whenever myself or Mary feels angry, we're out there connecting with that anger and then allowing the experience of that anger and then trying to drop into the fear of it. What am I afraid of each time, right? So allow yourself to do that. With fear, you may have to have a quiet sort of a location that you can actually use your imagination to actually go into a certain fear and then allow the bodily experience of it. And that might be your bedroom, or sometimes it's another room in your house or something like that. Try and arrange something in your environment. So arrange your home so that you can experience anger and fear. Right? Without judgment. So if everyone in your family, every time you get angry, gets upset with you, it's time to consider leaving your family for a while and going somewhere where nobody gets upset with you doing it. Does that make sense? Now, I don't mean they get upset with you projecting it at them, because if you're projecting it at them, you're already out of harmony with love, right? I'm talking about owning it within yourself and experiencing it for yourself. Let yourself experience those emotions. Does that make sense? Create a space around you where you can experience those emotions. What's the next thing we can do? Well, yeah, it's no good doing all of these things and then not giving yourself any time to process any of it, is it? Right? So you're going to have to somehow change your life if it's a very busy life. And by the way, it's probably busy because you're avoiding your fears. But you have to take an active steps to change your life so that you can start getting into the emotions of it. Because if you don't get into the emotions of it, you're never going to actually release it. So we can do all of these things to trigger ourselves, but then give ourselves no time to process, and we're just going to get into a terrible mess. We need to give ourselves enough love to actually experience it, to experience the thing. So emotionally, love yourself. So act in a loving way to yourself. Give yourself the time that you have to deal with these emotions. All right. Now, what's happening at the moment is quite a lot of spirits are here now with us. A lot of you are starting to feel really tired and everything, and feeling quite disconnected. A lot of you, because what's happening is we're talking about a subject, fear, which causes the depression usually of people. And so what we'd like to do is get you to stand up for a moment. Right? Now, you might want to move into a clear space somewhere around you, so you might want to get out behind a chair and move into a clear space. And what we want to do is put your arms right up in the air and breathe right in. And then as you breathe out, bend over. Right? That's it. And go up again. And as you're going up, breathe in. And then out. And this time do it faster. Right? You can bend your legs a little as you go down. And then in again. Keep going. I want to get that body flowing a bit. Just keep going. Do it a few more times. Some of you will start feeling a bit tingly in your face and everything. Don't worry too much about that. Just keep doing this a few more times. If you feel a bit faint, then you might want to sit down or go onto the floor. But keep doing it until you feel a little faint. All right? Until you feel a little faint. Yeah? Till you feel a bit wonky. If you feel a bit wonky, lay down on the floor and just let yourself breathe diaphragmatically. How are we feeling? Doesn't take long to feel a bit faint, does it? All right. So if you're feeling a bit faint, just grab a chair somewhere and might want to set that down. How are you feeling now? You're feeling a little more connected with yourself? Now, many of you are now starting to have quite a bit of tension in this tummy area here. Through here. Can you feel that? You try breathing diaphragmatically, and you'll find that there's resistance to breathing into your tummy for many of you. That's your fear. Your fear prevents you breathing into that place. All right? So if you sit down now, or maybe even lie down if you wish, and just try to concentrate on just breathing into that area of your body, into that tummy area of your body. We want to stay connected with the emotions. So we don't want to get into a depressed state with our emotions, facing our emotions. What we want to do instead is stay in the area where we feel connected with our emotion. So if that means feeling connected with fear, feel the fear. Now, you'll feel it as like a tummy turmoil in here. So many of you already feeling that. So just allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to feel it. So what I'm showing you now is some just little practical tools that you can use to stay in contact with your body and stay in contact with your fear. Right? So you might like to close your eyes and just breathe into this place, into the diaphragm. I'll just say a few things while you're doing that. There are many spirit beings around you at any one time. When you get into a place where you start connecting with your fear, many of these spirits get attracted to you. So the more I talk about fear, the more spirits are going to be attracted to us who are also in a state of fear. Does that make sense? So keep breathing. Now, those spirits will do one of two things for you. One thing they'll try to do with you is to make you feel tired and exhausted. Right? And so the key for you, if that's the case, is to recognize, all right, I'm feeling tired and exhausted. I wasn't feeling tired, exhausted before AJ started talking about this fear crap. And all of a sudden now I'm in this state where I don't really want to be here, I want to go. Understand, that's because of some feelings inside of me about the subject of fear. Right? So I need to allow myself to feel what I feel about that. Now, some of us have this intellectual belief that haven't got any fear anymore. And I can tell you categorically that there is nobody in this room that's in that state of not having any fear in them anymore. So the key is to allow yourselves to connect with what's going on inside of yourself. It's okay to be afraid. I'm allowed to be afraid. When you were little, you were often taught you weren't allowed. I'm saying to you, you're allowed to be afraid. Right? And I'm not going to tell you you've got nothing to fear, because there's plenty of things from your childhood that you know you are afraid of. Right? So allow yourself to be afraid. You're allowed to feel the fear. Okay. How are you going now? Now, all the spirits that are with us, I just want to talk to them for a moment too. You're allowed to fear your fear too, rather than affecting the people here in the room with your fear. So rather than making them more afraid or tuning out of their fear, what you need to do is tune in to your fear. You need to feel your fear too. And you need to connect to that fear and release it emotionally. Remember, that's what it's all about. Now, just as a practical thing for you, you know that breathing, that's a very, very quick way for you to get reconnected with your body. So if you find in the course of a day that you're not connected with your body, then do some of that breathing and you'll very rapidly get reconnected with your body generally. And you'll feel the reason why you're avoiding your body. And so the key is to feel the sensations in your body. Fear is in this area here mostly, right across your midriff, your third chakra area, if you think of it that way. So fear is a lot across there. So when you feel tight in that region of your body, you're often in a state where there's fear there. When you breathe like we just breathed, many of you will notice when you breathed in and went up, you felt this pain across there, across that midsection area, where it felt really tight and uncomfortable. And some of you would have felt a pain there. The key, that's telling you that you're in a state of fear in that's not being released. So let yourself feel that. Okay. So how do you feel about that breathing? How are you doing with the breathing? All right. Now, what was happening just earlier was that many of you were connecting with spirits who had one of two different goals. One of the goals was to shut you down emotionally. They're shut down emotionally and they want you to shut down emotionally. Some of them are your friends who have passed. Some of them are your old family members that have passed and so forth. And they don't believe a word I'm saying, and they're saying to you, you shouldn't believe a word he's saying either. And they want you to remain like they are in themselves, in the spirit world, still remaining in a state of shutdown. So that's one group. And the second group is a state who are in this terror-based place and want you to feel terrified constantly. Right? And some of them are angry, and so they want to project that anger at you so you're terrified and so forth. So the key for you to remember that these are all just law of attraction events. Now, often what we're doing emotionally is we're not recognizing what's going on around us, and that's often because we're not connected inside of ourselves, what's going on inside of myself. When I'm shutting down an emotion inside of myself, that's when my law of attraction is going to be the most powerful about that emotion. So it's the opposite to what people tell you. What people tell you is if you re-experience an emotion of your childhood, that all you're doing is damaging yourself over and over again. And what I'm saying is, no, that's not the case. If you allow yourself to actually experience the causal emotion, it will be released from you completely, but you need to experience the causal emotion to do that. Dennis, you would like to ask a question?
Thank you. Yawning, is that another way of them suppressing you?
Yeah.
Because I find myself doing that a lot.
Yep.
Kim and I will be reacting and I'll just keep yawning.
Yep.
Especially when she gets saying, you don't want to hear me.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. But again, after maybe an hour and a half, I'm just exhausted.
Yep.
And I haven't said a word.
Exactly, because there's obviously emotions coming out of you to Kim and emotions coming from her. And if you try to reconnect with yourself in that state, you'll understand why you're yawning. And yes, yawning is also a mechanism that our spirit friends, I don't know if you've noticed it, sometimes people have asked me a question, I've answered the question that's given in the audience, and then within 5 minutes that person who I answered the question to is asleep. I don't know if you've noticed that happening, but I've noticed that happening from up here quite a lot. What happens there a lot of times is the person didn't want to hear that answer and then straight away goes into avoidance of emotionally processing that answer. And then any spirits who are around them or who also did not want to hear that answer, just assist them in that process. And you can go to sleep within 5 minutes or 2 minutes from that place. So one moment they're being totally absorbed by something, another moment asleep. And you'll notice in many of our groups, the hardest groups I've ever given to an audience have all been the ones around anger and fear. I don't know if you've noticed that. But the last time I talked about fear, a lot of the audience felt very similar to how you're feeling at the moment. And the most difficult presentation I've ever done to a group of people was a presentation in Brisbane where I talked about anger. Almost the entire afternoon was one of suppression by large groups of spirits and a lot of people not wanting to hear about their anger. So they are two very common suppression emotions that we need to allow ourselves to work our way through.